You hear that sound? That's the sound of angry metal nerds tapping away at their keyboards, ready to call me an idiot because I said a band they like's album was lackluster. The thumbnail to this video alone probably already rustled some jimmies. But rustle them I shall, because 2020 is almost over, and it's time to talk about the most disappointing albums in an already most disappointing year. And here we go. Greetings, hard and heavy music fans. I'm Donte, this is the Heavy Haystack, and today I'm talking about my 9 most disappointing albums of the year 2020.
If you're hoping for an even 10, well, there's disappointment number 1.
Now take note that the word is disappointing and not worse. That means albums that I had decently high hopes for that fell a little bit short of the mark. Now if I was talking worst albums, that'd probably be something like your Uncle Tony's band, called something cheeseball like Rocket Bike or something, recorded live in one take on an old boombox, analog style, then say that he's landed the tape like How the Legends did it. Ain't nobody got time for that. That also means you won't see any Traps or Five Finger Death Punches on this list. Few outside of those bands' core fan bases had high hopes for those albums. I will say that Five Finger Death Punch's album Fate was at least listenable, while Trap's shadow work was even worse than I could have imagined it to be. Even worse than Mr. Trap's hot take opinions. Giving it past the pedos? Yikes. No wonder if Parlor's the only place that will stomach your ass. Now enough chit chat. This list is in order of increasing disappointment, from 9 being the least disappointing to 1 being the most. Let's begin. Let's start with the low-hanging fruit. Number 9 is 6 Feet Under's Nightmares of the Decomposed. Now the writing was already on the wall with their last album, Tortured. Some of the instrumentals on that record were passable, but Chris Barnes' vocals, ugh. On that record, they at least covered the vocals up a bit with a little bit of raw production. But on this album, everything's recorded a lot more pristine, so the band can show its ass in full glory. Chris Barnes' standard growl sounds like a man on his deathbed deep-throating a pork sword using acid for lube, and not in a cool metal way. And he splits that growl up with these bizarre squeals that I thought was a weird guitar effect or my headphones glitching out. But that's actually the man's voice. Something like that. That's terrible, Chris. Terrible. The instrumentals on this album are hit and miss as well, almost like the band is aware of the train wreck that they're contributing to and don't want to waste their best ideas on this project. 6 Feet Under is sounding well past their due date, and it just might be time for the band to hang it up. At number 8, we have something a little bit different. I wouldn't call this a bad album, dare I say it's even a good album that I thoroughly listen to and enjoy every now and again. And that album is Become the Hunter by Suicide Silence. Now why is this record on the disappointing albums list if I like it? Well, it's because I held very different expectations and very high expectations for this album. Higher and different than this record actually provided. After the band became a meme with their 2017 self-titled nu metal worship record, they had 2 options on what to do with the follow-up. 1, play it safe to get back into metal world's good graces, or 2, double down on this new sound, work out the kinks, and come back with a polished record that would be seen as a rebirth of the band. I was hoping that the band would choose the latter. Whitechapel accomplished this with their 2019 album The Valley. They took their growing pains and learned from them, and wound up with an album that evolved their sound, mixing together the old and the new that the deathcore scene could respect. And for me, it wound up as the number 1 spot on my best albums of 2019. Suicide Silence chose safety, however, making a record that walks the line of No Time to Bleed's rawness and the Black Crown's nu metalcore, territory that the band has already tread. It's not the record that they wanted to make, but felt that they had to make. You can feel it on examples like the atmospheric track Skin Tight, a song that's almost begging for melodic vocals, but they force the screams on it lest another Tee-Hee meme comes about. Hopefully with a renewed confidence, Suicide Silence will look to explore again on their next record, and bring us something that's a little bit new to the table. At unlucky number 7, everybody wants to know what he thinks. Well, I want to know what he was thinking with this album, and that's Corey Taylor with his debut solo album CMFT. While best known as the frontman of modern metal titan Slipknot, Taylor's other band Stone Sour allowed him to explore more of his rock side. And Stone Sour did a good job of it, with their last album Hydrograd being one of their best efforts to date, while also being the most rock-leaning album they've also done. But now that band is on indefinite hiatus, and Corey Taylor has gone solo to explore his rock-leaning interest. And the first taste he gave us of that was the first single from this record called CMFT Must Be Stopped, which sounds like the man giving us his best Kid Rock impression. It's a southern rock leading anthem that features Corey Taylor rapping once again. It might have been okay if he didn't feature two much better rappers, Kid Bookie and Tech Frickin' 9 on the track, who outclass him on his own damn song. The rest of the album thankfully isn't as cringe, but features a mediocre mixture of blues, country, and hard rock that barely stands above your run-of-the-mill butt rock. It seems like Corey motherfucking Taylor still needs to find his footing as a solo artist, without the help of other cooks in the kitchen to polish things up. At number 6 on the list, we have Amur.
Amur's always been a disappointment.
Hey now. Despite Amur being one of the most hated on bands in the metalcore scene, their previous album, Look at Yourself, was able to turn some heads. Thanks to the addition of ex-Glasscloud guitarist Josh Travis, the band was able to make a record that had the Amur sound and the Amur energy with some of their best realized songs and catchiest riffs to date. So their follow-up album with Travis on guitar was highly anticipated. Sadly, their album Hindsight falls a bit short of the mark. It has its moments, but mostly feels like a tracklist of demo ideas, a hodgepodge collection of riffs that needed more development before being pushed out. Most of the songs in this record have only one central riff idea, without much in the way of dynamics, and few fully developed sounding tracks like the previous album had, like Flag of the Beast or Smokey. This album had a lot of good pieces, but needed more ambitious structuring to make the songs really stand out. At number 5 on the list, there's In This Moment with their newest album, Mother. Despite the Grammy nomination for the song The In-Between, this album really is just a snooze fest, a real slog to get through. It's the first time I heard an In This Moment album and didn't at least enjoy it a little bit. The songs aren't very diverse from each other, and they all feel like a watered-down version of the industrial and nu metal sound that the band's employed in the latter half of their career. The album has not one, not two, but 3 covers of Queen, Steve Miller Band, and Mazzy Star, none of which do the original songs justice. The riffs on this thing are pretty bland, and frontwoman Maria Brink barely stretches her vocals beyond a slow, sleepy croon that she employs for the entire record. I commend the band for trying something a little bit different with every album, but this record sounds like the idea well is starting to run a little bit dry. Getting down to number 4, we have the self-titled comeback record from metalcore band The Ghost Inside. This record was more anticipated by the hardcore community more so than myself, because I haven't really enjoyed a Ghost Inside record since 2008's Fury and the Fallen Ones. Though the story of the band coming back from a tragic bus accident that halted their career was pretty heartwarming, and having Will Putney produce their comeback record also built some anticipation. But the resulting album sounds pretty generic to my ears, same as their other recent works. The Ghost Inside is a band that doesn't really benefit from squeaky clean production. They need a raw edge to match the intensity they're trying to bring, and they don't have the catchy songwriting skills to let the production really shine. I do feel like these records would go over well in a live setting, but on record, I don't really see what makes this band stand out to so many people. Getting to the most disappointing 3 here, and this next one really hurts my soul, because this is one of my favorite musicians in the game today, and that's Greg Puciato with his debut solo album, Child Soldier, Creator of God. This album is all over the place. It sounds like Puciato was so excited to have unrestrained freedom on a project that he just threw darts at every style that struck his fancy without much thought of cohesive direction. It's an overly long album with 15 tracks that set at over an hour, with most of those tracks resembling his band The Black Queen, which I liked a lot more when they were doing the 80s new wave aesthetic rather than the pure, restrained synthwave that they did on their last record. There's occasional forays into indie rock and experimental heavy tracks which I thoroughly enjoyed, but the lower quality, repetitive synthwave material highly outnumbers it. This record has some truly enjoyable tracks on it, but suffers from bloat and a lack of direction, and doesn't live up to the musical track record Puciato has made for himself. Thankfully, his Killer Be Killed album that came out a little bit later more than makes up for this, and it's definitely an album you should check out. And number 2 is an album I haven't seen many others chastise, and it's even made a lot of best of the year lists, but not mine. And that's Lamb of God's new self-titled record. It doesn't sound too different from Lamb of God's core style, but it's far from memorable in its execution. This record sounds like a collection of B-sides with only a few tracks standing out, like Memento Mori and New Colossal Hate. The band barely goes out of their comfort zone on this record. Few attempts at atmospheric tracks, no melodic vocal experimentation like on the last record, and there's a lack of anthems or hooks like they normally have, vocal or guitar-wise. This isn't an album that stands up to their status as one of metal's leading acts, and I feel like most of the praise this record has received has been due to the band's legacy more than the record itself. You can check out my full review of this album on my channel if you want to hear more of my thoughts on it. Last and least, on my most disappointing albums of 2020, we have a record that was not only subpar, but barely enjoyable, and that's a long-awaited album from Deftones titled Ohms. Many factors contributed to this one. The 4-year wait after the mixed bag of the previous album Gore, lead singer Chino Moreno saying this album reminded him of White Pony, the first 2 lead singles from this album coming out that were actually enjoyable, and then the full album comes out, and then try as I may, try as I might, Deftones' Ohms can go fly a kite. There's very little to grip you on this album riff-wise, vocal-wise, melody-wise, or otherwise. Beyond the 2 lead singles, the song The Spell of Mathematics is the only other memorable track, and that one already resembles one of the singles, Genesis, already. A lot of people have been putting this album on their best of the year list too, and this is one that I just can't agree deserves it. I have a video going into full detail that you can view on the channel about this one as well. And there's my list. What choices do you agree with? Which ones do you think I'm wrong on? What are your big letdown albums of the year 2020? Leave your answer down in the comments. Give this video a like, and subscribe to the Heavy Haystack if you want to see more videos similar to this one. Peace, love, music, and I'll see y'all next time.